It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday at the park, until a little girl was shoved off the swing by the one person meant to protect the rules. When the HOA president was arrested in front of the entire neighborhood, everything Maple Creek had ignored came crashing down. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and make sure you're subscribed. This story will have you shocked, emotional, and maybe even cheering by the end. Like the video and stay with us till the last moment. It's worth it. The sun poured gently over Maple Creek Park that Sunday, casting long golden streaks across the grass. Emma was crouched in the sandbox beside me, humming to herself while shaping a castle from wet sand, her tiny hands patting the towers with a focus only children can summon. Around us, families basked in the rare harmony, birds chirping, strollers parked in the shade, and the metallic clink of swings swaying under laughing children. It was the kind of day meant for memories.
Until the screaming started. It came from the direction of the swing.
I turned instantly and saw a girl, no more than 6, crumpled on the ground, sobbing, her elbow cradled in one hand. A woman in a white polo shirt and khaki capris loomed above her, arms rigidly planted on her hips, her lips pulled into a tight scowl. Standing behind her was a boy, around 8, his face flushed with embarrassment. The woman's voice rang out over the gasps gathering around her. "It's Brandon's turn now," she snapped. "He's been waiting 15 minutes." Gasps turned into movement as a wave of concerned parents surged forward. A woman, clearly the girl's mother, dropped to the ground, scooping her child into her arms. "Did you just push my daughter off the swing?" she asked, her voice trembling between disbelief and fury. "She was taking too long," the other woman replied flatly. "My son has rights too. The HOA handbook clearly states that all playground equipment must be shared equally." That voice, that tone of smug authority, I knew it before I saw her face.
Karen Brewster,
president of our homeowners association. The woman who once fined me $200 for leaving my trash bin visible 3 hours past collection. A woman so notorious she had a neighborhood nickname, the Clipboard Queen. Emma and I had arrived earlier, just after lunch. It was one of those rare perfect spring afternoons, 75 degrees, a breeze like silk, the sun warm but forgiving. The playground was lively but peaceful, the brand new rubber swing sets, funded by an HOA vote, drawing steady rotation among the kids. When I first spotted Karen, she was perched on a bench near the swings, gripping her phone in one hand and her son Brandon's wrist in the other. She didn't watch him play, she watched the equipment. Every few minutes, she'd lean down and whisper to him, eyes locked on the swings like a predator marking time. I'd seen that look before, controlled frustration dressed up as duty. Brandon, poor kid, looked miserable. He wasn't a bad child. Just quiet. Thoughtful. You could tell he'd learned how to stay invisible. Several parents had noticed too. Mrs. Chen caught my eye and raised her eyebrows.
Monsieur Rodriguez gave acquiescei.
They had their own stories. Chalk drawings banned for being graffiti, a friendly golden retriever accused of aggressive sniffing. Karen's tension was building. She began muttering, loud enough to be heard, 7 minutes is excessive. 5 is the fair limit. Her gaze locked on a little girl with flying pigtails, Sophia, as I would later learn, who was lost in her own rhythm, her feet pumping higher as she laughed freely. And then Karen stood up. Her movements were sharp, her heels digging into the mulch like she was heading into battle. Without warning, she stormed toward the swing set. "Excuse me, young lady," she barked. "You've had more than enough time. My son has been waiting patiently." Sophia didn't respond. She was still mid-swing, likely unaware of Karen's presence.
That is when Karen gripped the swing chain.
And yanked. Sophia flew sideways, her small body landing hard in the mulch with a sickening thud. For a second, time seemed to stop. Then, chaos.
Sophia screamed, a raw, panicked sound that tore through the spring air.
Her mother held her tightly, rocking her gently, eyes wide with disbelief. Other parents swarmed the scene, voices overlapping in rising anger. Some knelt beside the child, others formed a tense semicircle around Karen Brewster, who now stood defiantly beside the swing she'd just weaponized. "What is wrong with you?" one father shouted, stepping forward. His voice trembled, more with fury than fear. Karen didn't flinch. "Your daughter was monopolizing public property," she snapped. "My son has priority as the child of an HOA board member. That's in Section 12, Paragraph 3. "That's not real," Sophia's mother barked, holding her still crying child close. And even if it were, you don't get to lay hands on a child. Around them, parents nodded in stunned agreement. Mrs. Chun crossed her arms and stepped forward. This is not the first time, Karen. You've bullied this community for years. This time, you crossed a line. Karen's face flushed, but her chin jutted upward in response. I enforce the rules that keep this neighborhood from turning into chaos. If you all can't handle order, maybe you should move. The tension was thick. I pulled out my phone, heart racing, and began recording. So did others. Karen seemed unfazed at first, pointing fingers, listing unrelated violations, trash bins, lawn lengths, overdue HOA dues. Her voice rose higher, her tone more shrill, like a teakettle seconds from boiling over. Your Halloween lights stayed up too long. And I have photo evidence your mailbox is non-compliant. Parents looked to each other in disbelief. Then Mrs. Rodriguez stepped forward quietly and said, I'm calling 911. Karen scoffed. Don't be ridiculous. But Mrs. Rodriguez was already dialing. Minutes later, sirens approached, and 2 police cruisers rolled up to the park's curb. Officers Davis and Martinez exited calmly but with purpose, scanning the crowd as they approached. We received a call about a potential assault involving a child, Officer Davis announced. Can someone explain what happened? Voices erupted again, but Officer Martinez raised a hand. One at a time. Start with the injured party. Sophia's mother stepped forward, cradling her daughter, whose tears had slowed to a whimper. This woman pushed my daughter off a swing, she said clearly, pointing at Karen. Because her son wanted a turn. Karen's arms folded tightly. That's not true, she said. That is a gross mischaracterization. I was enforcing the 5-minute time limit. The HOA guidelines clearly state. Ma'am, Officer Davis interrupted, did you physically touch the child? Karen hesitated, then shrugged. I guided the swing to a stop. If she let go, that's not my fault. That's when I stepped forward. I have video, I said, holding up my phone. From the moment she approached the swing. Other parents nodded, raising their phones too. Brandon, Karen's son, looked down at his shoes, silent. When asked directly, he admitted in a soft voice, she pulled the swing. I told her not to, but she didn't listen. Karen's mouth parted, her confidence faltering. The officers reviewed the footage carefully. I watched their expressions shift as the video played. Officer Martinez's jaw tightened. Officer Davis glanced at his partner and nodded. Mrs. Chun stepped beside them. I'm an attorney, she said. There have been at least 3 prior complaints about this woman filed with the county. Harassment, overreach of authority, threats. It's documented. Karen's posture grew more frantic. She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them. Her voice pitched upward again. This is absurd.
Over à playground?
Do you even know who I am? Yes, Officer Davis replied. You're someone who assaulted a minor in a public park. And that's against the law. Then came the moment we never expected. Officer Martinez reached for his cuffs. Karen's breath caught audibly as Officer Martinez stepped closer, metal cuffs in hand. Ma'am, you're being placed under arrest for assault on a minor and disturbing the peace, he said calmly. You have the right to remain silent.
The word struck the group like a shockwave.
For a heartbeat, everyone stood frozen. Then came the murmurs, low, incredulous, disbelieving. Karen, the woman who had dictated so many trivial rules, now blinked rapidly as the law stared back at her. Her eyes widened. Her lips moved soundlessly, like her mind couldn't catch up with reality. This is outrageous, she cried finally, stepping back. I'm the president of the Maple Creek HOA. You can't treat me like some common criminal. But Officer Davis moved with professional ease, gently but firmly guiding her wrists behind her back. The unmistakable click of handcuffs echoed across the playground. Karen flinched as though it burned. Her posture stiffened, her pride warring with disbelief. Then came a sound that cut through everything, Brandon crying. The little boy's face crumpled, tears rolling down his cheeks. He looked not at the officers, but at his mother, as if trying to understand why she wasn't invincible anymore. His sobs weren't loud, but they were deep, full of confusion and shame. Mrs. Rodriguez crouched beside him, whispering soothing words, then gently wrapped an arm around him and led him away from the patrol car. Karen saw it. She turned her head sharply as Brandon walked away, her expression breaking for the first time. Her mouth trembled. For a split second, she looked like a mother, not a dictator. But it was gone as quickly as it came. As the officers walked her toward the waiting cruiser, she twisted around and shouted, "This isn't over. You'll regret this. The HOA board will hear about it. You think this neighborhood can function without me? Property values will plummet." The officers remained silent. No one followed. No one stepped forward in protest. And for the first time, Karen Brewster looked completely alone.
That evening, the playground emptied slowly.
Parents gathered their children, glancing over their shoulders as they left.
The silence lingeait like fog.
Sophia had been taken to urgent care. Thankfully, only bruises, no broken bones. But her mother sat beside her, clutching her hand as if the world had cracked open. By Monday, the story had swept through Maple Creek like wildfire. The video spread on neighborhood group chats. People who had once defended Karen started falling silent. A few claimed they'd never agreed with her methods. Others simply said, it was bound to happen. Then came the email, emergency HOA board meeting, Thursday, 7 p.m. agenda, disciplinary vote and board review following arrest of President Brewster. The community center filled beyond capacity. Folding chairs scraped across tile floors, and neighbors who rarely spoke before now shared nods and knowing glances. Rain tapped the windows as Karen entered the room. She looked nothing like herself. No jewelry.
No pastel suie.
No clipboard. Just a tired woman in a gray sweater, hair limp, eyes hollow. She didn't speak. Didn't sit with anyone. Just folded into the last chair at the end of the row. The board reviewed every detail. Police report, video footage, community statements. Then came the motion to vote.
A simple question, Ridalou.
Shall Karen Brewster be removed as board president effective immediately? One by one, 5 board members raised their hands.
Unanimou.
Karen didn't argue. Didn't shout. She stared at the table in front of her as if waiting for it all to dissolve. Then came the final blow, the treasurer outlining her legal situation. Misdemeanor assault charges, up to 1 year in jail, a $5,000 minimum fine, mandatory anger management, and a court order banning her from parks when children were present. The DA was pursuing the case aggressively, citing video evidence and multiple witness statements.
Still, Karen said nothing.
Only at the very end, as she gathered her few belongings, did she whisper hoarsely, more to herself than to anyone else, "My life is ruined, all because of a stupid swing." The fallout from Karen's arrest rippled through Maple Creek like an earthquake. By Friday, her name had become a punchline whispered across porch steps and dog-walking paths. Local parents who'd long kept their heads down suddenly found their voices, sharing stories of overreach, intimidation, and years of bottled resentment. At first, some residents were hesitant to speak publicly. Karen's grip on the neighborhood had been more than just procedural, it had been psychological. She ruled not with authority, but with the ever-present threat of inconvenience.
Letters, fines, public shaming at meeting.
But now, with the video circulating, with the mugshot making the rounds in local Facebook groups, the fear began to lift. The HOA secretary confirmed what many had suspected. Karen had been attempting to pass a quiet motion the week before her arrest. Hidden deep in the meeting minutes was a proposed amendment suggesting that certain playground equipment, most notably the new swings, be designated for exclusive use by the children of HOA board members during peak community hours. When asked for clarification, the board admitted the language had been added at Karen's insistence, but had not yet been formally voted on. It was the final thread that unraveled whatever goodwill Karen had left. A week after her removal, the HOA held an open forum, a rare opportunity for residents to voice grievances without the fear of retaliation. It was standing room only. Folding chairs lined every wall. People stood in corners and sat on the floor. The room pulsed with a strange electricity, the tension of years of pent-up frustration ready to explode. Mrs. Chun, composed as ever, stood first. What happened to Sophia was unacceptable. But it didn't happen in isolation. Karen's behavior was enabled by our silence. That ends today. Applause followed. Real, sustained applause.
Monsieur Rodriguez stepped up next.
My kids stopped playing outside because of her. She accused my son of vandalism over chalk drawings on our own driveway. We all just let it go because we didn't want to deal with the consequences. One by one, neighbors took the floor, each story piling on the next. Noise complaints issued for toddlers' birthday parties, threats to fine a family whose garden gnomes violated aesthetic continuity, even a bizarre case where Karen accused a resident of allowing their car to be too red and therefore disruptive to the visual balance of the block. Some stories drew laughter, others disbelief. But the underlying tone was unified, relief. For the first time, the community was speaking freely. Brandon wasn't at the meeting, nor was Karen. She had reportedly retreated to her sister's house in another city while awaiting her first court date. Her attorney had released a statement claiming the incident was mischaracterized, and that Karen was under extraordinary stress due to community dysfunction and personal hardship. Few seemed moved. Meanwhile, Sophia was healing. Her elbow was still wrapped, but she had returned to the playground, hesitant at first, but smiling again. Her mother stayed nearby now, always watching, though never hovering. When asked by another parent how she felt about everything, she simply said, "I'm glad people finally saw what we've been living with." The HOA board, embarrassed by the scandal, began revising internal processes. One new proposal required all disciplinary action to be reviewed by a neutral third party. Another demanded a cap on how long any one person could serve as president. Small changes, but they mattered. For the first time in years, neighbors lingered after meetings. Children played more freely. There was laughter again on the sidewalks of Maple Creek, laughter not forced through tight smiles, but genuine, relieved, and long overdue. The neighborhood hadn't healed completely, but something important had shifted. Power had returned to the people who actually lived there. And Karen's seat at the board table remained conspicuously empty. 2 months later, the trial began. It wasn't a grand affair, no reporters, no flashing cameras, just a modest courtroom with beige walls, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a judge who looked like he'd seen 1,000 small-town disputes and knew the weight even the quietest cases could carry. But for the residents of Maple Creek, it was monumental. More than a verdict, it was validation. Several neighbors took time off work to attend. Parents who once whispered behind closed doors now sat shoulder to shoulder in the back row, resolute. They weren't there for spectacle, they were there because justice mattered. To them. To their children. To their community. Karen entered the courtroom looking like a faded memory. Her once sculpted hair hung limp at her shoulders. Her pale face was drawn, and her blazer, black unadorned, seemed too big for the frame that used to carry so much command. She didn't look at anyone. Her eyes remained locked on the defense table as she was seated beside her attorney, lips pressed into a nervous line. The prosecution didn't rely on theatrics. They didn't need to. The facts were clear. A child had been pushed. Multiple witnesses.
Vidéo évidence.
A pattern of aggressive, obsessive behavior under the guise of community service. Mrs. Wilson spoke first, her voice calm but fierce. "We're not here because of one bad moment," she said. "We're here because of a pattern we all ignored too long." Mrs. Chen and Mr. Rodriguez followed, recounting years of petty fines, threats, and fear. "You think something small like a chalk drawing doesn't matter," Mr. Rodriguez said. "But when small things stack up, people stop living freely." When Brandon was called to the stand, a hush fell over the courtroom.
The boy walked with small, hesitant steps.
His oversized button-up shirt made him look even smaller. But when he spoke, his voice, soft and earnest, carried more weight than any adult's. "I told her not to do it," he said. "I told her it wasn't fair. But she didn't listen. I'm sorry." Karen didn't look up. She kept her eyes fixed downward, her hands trembling faintly in her lap. When it was finally her turn to speak, her voice was raspy. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said. "I just wanted things to be fair. I thought rules kept people safe." The judge's decision came the following day. Guilty on both counts, assault on a minor and disturbing the peace. Karen was sentenced to 6 months of probation, mandatory counseling, and 120 hours of community service. She was barred from holding any HOA position indefinitely and prohibited from entering any public park without prior approval from local authorities. The judge was firm but not cruel. Justice, he said, must always be tempered with an opportunity to change. Some in the community felt the sentence was too lenient. Others believed it was just. But no one doubted it was deserved. Karen didn't return to Maple Creek. Her house went on the market quietly. A for sale sign appeared one morning, and within weeks, a young couple with a toddler and a Labrador moved in. On move-in day, neighbors brought cookies, toolboxes, and open smiles. They were greeted not with warnings or rules, but with warmth. At the next HOA meeting, something had changed. The energy in the room wasn't tense, it was hopeful. Mrs. Chun, newly elected president, stood confidently behind the podium. "Our job is to protect this community," she said, "but also to uplift it. To make it better, not smaller." Applause filled the room. Real, unanimous applause. Outside, the playground thrived. Sophia was back on the swings, her cast long gone, her pigtails flying, laughter slicing through the breeze like sunlight. Brandon stood behind her, pushing gently, his expression light. She called him her swing buddy. He smiled. No one counted minutes. No one enforced turns. Children played. Parents chatted. And the weight that once hovered over Maple Creek had finally lifted. The scars were still there, but so was something else. Peace.
Real, Irned Pease.
What would you have done if you witnessed this? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And if you liked this story, check out our next HOA meltdown tale right here.